right now it seems that the vibe is overwhelmingly positive. You tell us your take and any insights you have into Udoka as a coach and what kind of coach you think he's going to be here.
Well, I think the biggest thing that he comes in with, which is unusual for assistant coaches, is that.
No, I'm just kidding.
See, Joseph, I was going to stay away from Nia Long.
Sherrod hated when I did that too.
The long and short of it was I was going to stay away from Nia Long.
Are we going to get Nia Long a podcast? I don't know. That's a big question here.
First and last mention of Nia Long. Go ahead.
Let's make it happen. Okay. No, but the fact that he comes from the Popovich tree, I think that cannot be that can't be overstated enough. That how important it is to have someone that's coming into the organization who doesn't just have a feel for winning, but is basically. I mean, he was at the foot of the Grand Poobah of the coaching tree, the coaching forest when you think about Popovich and what he's meant. And to me, and Bobby, I heard you mention earlier about, he hasn't really had the kind of illustrious career that a Chauncey Billups has. You know what? When you look at where the Celtics are at, they're going to need someone who understands how to get the most out of those guys, those late first, early second round free agent type guys that, frankly, he can relate to because he was one of them.
What's up, Ian?
And the other thing too is that he has a very good reputation throughout the league with players. When you look at San Antonio, one of the biggest pickups that they have from a free agency standpoint was LaMarcus Aldridge. You go back and you look at who was key to that. Udoka was when they were together in Portland. So he understands the game about how you've got to be able to be. You've got to connect with the players. But the point that John made earlier, and I thought it was a good one. We don't know how he's going to be able to handle moving 6 inches over now. We don't know how that's going to play out. But the key for him, I think, is putting together a staff that will complement whatever he understands are areas that he needs support in.
Have you met him, Sherrod?
Yeah, we've talked a few times. Good guy.
What do you think of him?
I think he's a good guy. I think he'll be a good coach. I think the jury is still out on how good a coach he will be, but there's no question from a knowing the game standpoint, he checks that box off. Having the experience of being in a winning environment, a championship caliber environment, checks off that box as well. But for me at this point, the key for him is putting the right staff together that's going to complement him. And then the other thing too, and you guys talked about it earlier, the fact that your two best players have already signed off on this being someone they want.
Makes a difference. Yep.
I think that's a huge difference. I think that's one of the things, if you want to start breaking down, some of the things that Brad Stevens has just absolutely aced in his short time as the GM, as the president of basketball ops, that has to be near the top of the list. And that is making sure your major decisions involve your major players. They don't have to make the decision, but keep them in the loop as to what the hell you're going to do.
Okay. Time for one of my analogies. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Here we go.
Another breakup.
No, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Does it involve Nia Long? That's what I want to know.
No, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, Sherrod. Okay. Now, we asked you were just asked what kind of coach he's going to be, and you said the following things. You said he's a good guy, and then you said he knows the game of basketball. That's the what do you think of my friend equivalent of she's nice. Okay. That's what you just gave, okay? You did not give a glowing, over the top. This guy's a superstar, up and comer, rising.
I don't think.
I'm just saying. If I was going only by what you just said, I'd be like, ooh. I was like, that was kind of lukewarm praise. So I'm going to circle back to it.
Yes, thank you.
It was a little lukewarm. Did you mean it that way?
The reason it was lukewarm, John, is because I just think that there are a lot of unknowns about him that I'm not trying to put him on a pedestal the way we did his predecessor.
That's a good point.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
He deserves a blank slate to come in here and establish who he is because we don't know how good a head coach he's going to be. But we do know that he comes from a good pedigree. We know that he's been in the league. We know that the team's best players are all in on this guy.
Yeah.
But we really don't. To me, like I said, and I hate to sound like a broken record about this, but who he puts together for his staff is going to be critical to his success. Because this isn't like hiring a Mike D'Antoni, who no matter who he puts on the staff, the head coach is going to be that guy. Or a Tom Thibodeau staff where he's going to be that guy. Udoka is going to need to have a village around him that's going to fill in whatever gaps that he's going to have as a first-year head coach, because there will be gaps. It's inevitable. But from what I know about him and just in the times that I've communicated with him, I think he'll be fine. But again, he needs to surround himself with the right types of assistant coaches in order to be successful.
Yeah, and you didn't just mention the Popovich tree, which again, in like football circles, obviously like the Belichick tree. I mean, some of those guys are successful, some of them are not. It is hard, to go out there and to do it. And not only that, some people who've gone out there and tried to emulate Bill Belichick, like McDaniels or Charlie Weiss or these, Bill O'Brien, you can't be that. There's only one. But what I like the most about it is I don't believe he's in the Greg Popovich style of coach. I think he had a different style than Greg Popovich in terms of his overall approach to dealing with players. And I like the fact that Greg Popovich glowingly signs off on him, because Greg Popovich doesn't say nice things about anybody. Well, I mean, he does. But you know what? He's not a guy who's going to just toss around praise just because he feels like it. I think if he says it, he means it. And you certainly want, among all, not just having coached under him, but among all of the endorsements I like the best is the fact that Popovich really, really, really believes in his guy. And again, you're always going to have a loyalty to your old assistants and you want to see them get ahead, but you can also say nothing. And I think he really believes in this guy as a head coach, which I think is a good thing. And as we said, we have the player endorsements as well. I really do want to see them come out publicly, hopefully when this is official, and say some nice things in here, because that's going to make Celtics fans feel a little bit better. But I assume that they will. I assume that they're going to like this move. I'll ask you this, Sherrod. Do you think he was their first choice, or do you think they read the tea leaves on Chauncey and thought, we're not going to get this guy, so let's just make this move now?
That's a great question, John. I've been texting around trying to get a sense of that, and haven't heard anything definitively on that. But I get the feeling that this was their guy. I mean, if Chauncey was the guy that they wanted, they would have offered him to him. And if they did offer to him and he said, I don't know, well, then they immediately move on. I think the fact that this falls in line with what Brad has already started off doing, and that is making decisive decisions and moving on to the next thing to do. You look at the trade for Al, that came about ridiculously quick. You look at bringing in Udoka, again, another fairly quick move when you think about it. And it makes sense. I mean, I guess I would feel a little bit differently if, like, for example, everyone knows Chauncey was the guy that I would have loved to have been here. But when you look at Udoka's body of work and you look at Chauncey's, you can make a legitimate case, a very strong case, that Udoka has a stronger body of work and is the more qualified candidate. And I have no problems with that. But again, just like if Chauncey were hired, the key was going to be who he surrounded himself with. The same thing holds true for Udoka.
It's interesting, too, because Danny moved the complete opposite, right? At least in my opinion, right? It seemed like he took his time with almost everything, whether it was free agents, whether it was making the right trade.
We can wait till the offseason.
When to cash in those assets. I'm sure a lot of Celtics fans have an opinion about that he may have waited way too long in some cases, whereas Brad has been the complete opposite. I don't know, just something to think about, something I've noticed so far, because it's just the complete opposite compared to Danny. And for someone that's been working underneath Danny for 7 years, it's interesting to see how he's deciding how he's going to do things. You look at a coach like Ime Udoka coming into a situation where he was under Popovich, for a long time, went to Brooklyn, had a couple of other situations, which is a good thing, compare and contrast. Also, I don't think he's the kind of coach that's thinking he has to be Popovich. I think the advantage of being in that situation for so long and other situations is that you're able to take all that and create your own style. And, I feel very confident, or at least I should say, comfortable with this hiring, with guys like Tatum and Brown signing off on it, but also the fact that all three of these guys, including Marcus Smart as well, you put him in there as well. They all have a bit of a history together with Team USA.
Hi guys, Cedric Maxwell here. I want to take a minute to tell you about Marigold Medical. I'm used to keeping my body in great shape, but with arthritis, even the most simple everyday tasks became unbearable. As soon as I called Marigold Medical, I knew I was in good hands. No drugs, no surgery, just an experienced team of caring professionals that wanted to get me back to doing the things I love. Make the call to Marigold Medical and get back to pain-free life.
Bye.